Black fatigue is when I can hear you 10 miles away in Walmart with your 5 fucking kids.
Yeah, because poor white people who live in rural parts of the United States are famously respectful and quiet when they walk up in Walmart with the 5 kids that they had with their second cousin.
Black fatigue is when you have no home training and you have no idea how to act in public.
In my high school, I saw 2 white pregnant 15-year-olds fist fight each other in the lunchroom, wearing Cookie Monster pajamas.
And a lot of it is culture. I've been in the hood. I've been in the fucking schools and the projects where I was the only white girl there.
Quick question. When you were at that school, did you read in a history book about how your grandmother was denied the right to vote and how your ancestors were brutalized and enslaved and eaten by their slave owners?
And I can 100% guarantee you that it's culture. When majority of y'all know someone who has been unalived by another black person.
Hey, so before you made this, did you look at the demographic statistics of school and, people who their entire family in cold blood?
Way more than any instance of a black person being unjustifiably unalived by the police. That's black fatigue.
All of you literally think every unarmed black person who was unalived by the police is completely justified. Breonna Taylor committed the crime of sleeping in her bed. Trayvon Martin was reaching for Skittles, and Ahmaud Arbery was going for a jog. All right?
As well as donating to Carmelo Anthony and Rodney Hinton Jr.
If I watched a police officer end my child's life in front of me and I was in a car, I'd run them over and you'd probably call me a hero. And I seem to remember another teenager who was carrying a weapon, warned people not to come near him. People without weapons came near him and then he used that weapon and ended their life. His name was Kyle Rittenhouse. And y'all stand him to this day. If the kid who stabbed Austin Metcalf deserves to go to jail, then so does Kyle Rittenhouse.
When you aren't able to hold your own community accountable, that's a problem.
There is a Klan museum in the middle of downtown Kennesaw, Georgia. And when the white supremacist owner of it, Dent Myers, passed away, the Kennesaw government held it up to a vote on whether or not it stayed open, and the entire city of Kennesaw showed up in droves to make sure that that Klan museum stayed open. And you wonder why minorities feel unsafe in this country. We literally have no right to tell people how to hold their own accountable.
That's a problem. We're not going to sit here and act like this is new now, because now white people are speaking out.
I can't believe that y'all just spent the last 10 years telling everybody that Democrats were the real racists.
Especially when we've been told for so long to feel sorry for our whiteness.
No one wants you to feel sorry for your whiteness. There are still black Americans alive today who remember not being able to drink from the same water fountains and not getting a quality education and being shunned from being able to build wealth in this country. And before Cory Booker broke the record for the longest filibuster, it was previously held by a white supremacist segregationist who was trying to stop the Civil Rights Act. And you think that because the history book acknowledges that very real fact that you're being made to feel guilty about your race? No.
And that we have WHlTE privilege, whatever the fuck that means.
People with non-white names are statistically less likely to get hired for jobs. And back when Donald Trump was busy building his real estate empire instead of ruining my country, he was found liable for denying non-white tenants.
For something no white person alive today did.
Yeah, maybe the white people alive today didn't do it, but the flags that were flown by the people who did it are still being flown at full mast off the bed of every lifted Ford F-150 this side of the Mississippi, right next to the Blue Lives Matter sticker and the Trump flag.
And no black person alive today has experienced. There is no way that y'all thought that we would be quiet for this long.
Enlighten me. At what point in the last 20 years has the racism on the right been anything except loud, obnoxious, and disgusting?
No, having us on our knees, kissing BLM's feet, still begging for the reparations that you are not fucking owed because you did not go through what your ancestors went through.
When generation after generation, a certain race of people are systematically barred from climbing the social ladder of the country that they live in, it's going to have a generational ripple effect.
Nobody cared about race until you started blaming white people for all of your current problems.
Imagine waking up every day knowing that just being yourself is a protest, that your smile has to be strategic, that your anger could cost your life. Imagine being told to get over it while carrying generations of pain. Black fatigue is not just tiredness. It is the accumulated psychological stress of enduring racism, microaggressions, invisibility, and cultural erasure every single day. Watch and pay attention, and I will share my thought later.
White here. Racial segregation, caring that your skin is a certain color, that was us. We came up with that. That's an us thing.
We're just untolerating it.
And this pseudo-edgelord psyop that we're calling the MAGA movement runs its course, and all of you are done having your little hissy fits because you feel just a little bit more comfortable finally being open about your racism. I hope this video and videos like these follow all of you to every job interview you ever go to. And I hope that you're in an unemployment line for the rest of your existence.
Like, black people are notorious for naming their children 25-letter names that are never going to get even pronounced right, let alone spelled right. Like, why would you do that?
Over there. Do you know why they actually do that? The reason for that is because during slavery, their identities were taken away. So they had to have unique names in order to identify their offspring when they were sold from different plantations. So that came down generationally as generational trauma.
Okay, well, how about now? Isn't that sort of trauma for that poor kid that's never going to have his name spelled right?
Only to your standards. Like, what is...
If I were that child, I wouldn't want my name misspelled all the way through or mispronounced by people.
That's because people can't take the time to pronounce it correctly.
Whatever.
You can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but you can't say Jaquan. Are you kidding me?
Okay, whatever the result is, the poor child does not have his name pronounced correctly or spelled correctly.
Because people do not take the time. You can take the extra 2 seconds to do it, but instead you're sitting here making fun of a whole culture of people for things that they didn't have a choice on.
Do you have a name that gets misspelled a lot?
I sure do. Because my mom whitewashed my name.
That's racist.
You want to know why some of the white community is over the black community? It's because they're racist. I saw a video the other day from Simple Black Theory, and I'm going to link his video to this one. He was debunking a video by the real Athena K. And I'm not going to link to her video. I'm tired of looking for it. She doesn't need any more of your traffic anyway because her opinions are fucking trash. But she was saying that white people are tired of being blamed for something that they didn't do themselves. And that's true. That's true. When we look at our history and we look at slavery and Jim Crow and lynchings, those aren't things that most people today have done. But, you know, black kids in the foster care system are still adopted with the goal of turning them into slaves. There are people who are still being arrested for slavery. The 13th Amendment still legalizes slavery as punishment for a crime. Let that sink in. Slavery is still legal in the United States. It shouldn't be. We should have zero tolerance to this evil and arcane practice. But getting back to white people being tired of being blamed for something that they didn't do, nobody's blaming you for the sins of your ancestors. They just want you to fucking acknowledge that it happened in all of its dirty, ugly details and then reject that inheritance outright. Because we talk about some of the most egregious things in our history books and kind of glaze over it. Slavery happened. That's usually where the conversation ends. It doesn't talk about how people were beaten near to death, withholding food, the living conditions that they were in, what their clothing was like. Doesn't talk about how their languages were stolen from them, how they were beaten for trying to speak their language, how their heads were shaved, which black hair is a big portion of their culture. It doesn't address the rapes, the pedophilia, the breeding programs, none of that. We don't talk about how slaves were rented out. Oh, my ancestors didn't have slaves. Did they rent them? Did they rent them? People who rented slaves were worse to the slaves than the people who owned them. And I said we should reject that heritage outright. That includes any of the words and terminology that our ancestors used to talk about black people. So I don't understand why there's so many people who say that they're for equality, for treating everybody equally. Why you are so hell-bent on being able to use racial slurs. If you say you're a good person, why the fuck do you want to say those things? It just brings us back to the original question.
You're in the wrong line. Go wait your turn with them.
I'm not American. I'm with the British RAF.
All colored sit together at the back.
This is not America. There's no segregation in this country. I will go where I please and I will sit where I please.
Don't make trouble, son. Once you're inside in the dark, they won't know where you're sitting, will they?
That our culture creates and recreates and recreates and recreates. And I just think about it, right? In order for us to be in this state where we're always in competition, stemming from this Greco-Roman European mind struct that there's not enough resources on the planet, so we're always in competition. And in order to be in competition, I need to create an enemy, even when there is none. So black folks have always been our enemy because they are the ones that understand the abundance of life. They live a village to raise a child. That is a sharing community full of love and enjoyment, and we didn't have that. We don't have that connection coming from where we come from. That's sad, but because of it, we feel traumatized. We're weaponized in our trauma to hate somebody, to see somebody else's success as an enemy to us, to see someone else living in a land that has resources that we seek as an enemy to us. We create that enemy. We don't have to be enemies with black folks. They have shown us love and are waiting to show us more love when we finally stop this mental trauma game of thinking we're in competition and they are our enemy. And we do it with brown folks, right? We do it with indigenous cultures and aboriginal cultures all over the planet. Wherever we have gone, we have caused harm instead of appreciated the love that we were shown. And that's a trauma brain response. So when I speak about the need for repairing the harm that we have caused others, it is also so that we can learn our own humanity and break down and tear down these walls of our own trauma-brained response as white folks. And no, I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry.
So you went with 1350. Cute. Those are arrests, not convictions. Arrest. Math is hard for white supremacists, and I understand that. I get it. It's hard. I wouldn't want to do it either if I didn't know how. But while you're doing this, while you were over here making this bullshit ass 1356 or 58 or whatever the fuck number, I want to show you something from your own fucking page. Hold on. Hold on. This is a picture from your page. You see that name right there? That's a convicted felon. That is a convicted felon. A state in the union convicted him of crimes. That man has more felonies than I do. I'm not talking about arrests. It's about convictions. In the court of law, I have no felonies whatsoever. None. Not a one. Never been arrested for one, never been charged for one, never been convicted for one, never spent time in jail for one. He has 34 felonies. Convictions. Convictions. Meaning he broke the fucking law and was convicted for it. So how does that 1356 look now? How does it look now? I'm one of the 13% and I ain't got a felony. I've never been even arrested for one. Him has been arrested, fingerprinted, mugshotted, booked, released, bailed out, tried, adjudicated by a jury of his peers, found guilty. Does 1356 apply to that? Does it? Make no mistake about it. Y'all use 1356 as if it's a cudgel. You want so desperately to believe that every single black person is bad. I once saw a number from one of you dumbasses that said in the year of 2022, 400 million black babies were aborted. For that number to be anywhere close to correct, my mother, who had been dead for 2 years at that time, would have had to have had 2 children or 2 abortions. You see, this is why these conversations are bad for y'all. They are. Even a aware black person with a limited amount of education can destroy everything that you're saying. And I think that's the point. Y'all like saying this shit to each other. It's like sitting in an elevator and farting and smelling each other's farts. Just because you have it in your head does not make it true. Because like I just showed you, I don't have any felony arrest, any felony convictions, none of that. But the guy whose name is on that goddamn card that you have as a video on your page does. So what does that say about you? What does it say what does it say about people like you? Would you like for me to do it demographically the same way you just did? 1356? Okay. 65% of boomers have felony convictions. Since we just pulling numbers out of our ass, he is a boomer. He has felony convictions. 65% of white men commit rapes on people. He was found liable for defamation of character and grape. So should I attribute all that? Should I attribute his crimes to every boomer man, or 65% of them? Should I do, I don't know, 1365? Should I do that? 95% of older white people commit crimes. I'm basing it off of him. Isn't that what you do? Oh, you don't like it when that happens. Then maybe you shouldn't do it. I need you to understand this. Y'all can 1356 my dick in your mouth. 1356. These nuts. Just because you say it does not make it true. Just like supposedly 400 million black babies were aborted in 2022, which would have meant my mother would have had to have a couple of them. And she was 84 when she left this earth. And we're not even going to touch the fact that you cannot be the majority in this country and not also be the majority of everything. Crime, yeah. Abuse of narcotics, yeah. Welfare recipients, yeah. Medicaid recipients, yeah. Food stamp users, yeah. Alcoholics, yeah. Baby mamas, yeah. Do you get it now? Do you get it? Is it clear to you? Maybe you shouldn't 1356 shit. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe in this regard, you should be an old white woman, tend your garden, love your husband or not, love your kids or not, love your grandkids or not, and stay out of conversations that are going to hurt your feelings. Because I'm not my ancestors. I am never going to play fair with you. I'm going to remind you that you are part of a demographic that has committed heinous acts like, I don't know, mass. And since I don't know when one of y'all is going to snap off with your arsenal and decide to take out an entire Dunkin' Donuts because you had a bad day or whatever, maybe I should attribute that to you too as well, huh? How about the crimes of Kyle Rittenhouse? Do you want those? Do you want them? Peyton Gendron, you want those crimes too? You know, he drove from Pennsylvania to Buffalo to go to a predominantly black neighborhood in a predominantly black supermarket, and 10 people are no longer on this planet because of him. How about Dylan Roof? You want some of his crimes too? I could go on. I won't even talk about the serial killers. Yeah, sit this one out. Sit it out. Because if you continue to trek on this grass, I'm going to break your heart. And I'm going to have a smile on my face as I do it.
I do not trust, nor do I like people who tell others that if they are still holding on to pain and grief about things that were done to them in their childhoods, at school, that there's something wrong with them and they're immature and they need to move on. Because what that tells me is that you don't understand the privilege that you've had in your life of having either the tools and resources to heal out of what happened to you in childhood or heal through And or you've also had the support systems to help you heal through and out of the things that happened to you. I grew up isolated from anybody who looked like me. I didn't know any Vietnamese people growing up. I didn't have genetic mirrors because I was adopted. And I was ostracized and made fun of a lot for being Vietnamese. People made fun of my eyes. People categorized me as ugly very consistently. White people placed the majority of my value and worth in my appearance from a very young age. That is not something that is easily unlearned in adulthood, especially if you don't have the tools and resources to do it, especially if you didn't have the people, the parents, the family to combat all of that racism that you were exposed to as a kid. I've been sitting here all night in my feels about my hair because for the first time in 28 years, I played around and tried a hairstyle that accentuates my baby hairs and my sideburns. I hated this growing up. I would take a razor to my baby hairs and to my sideburns, and I'd be left with little spiky stubble because I thought I looked ugly. I have had to confront the racism that I was exposed to my entire life. I have had to unlearn everything I was taught about myself by white people. And I have had to greet my inner child. I have had to greet little me and reassure her that everything I was taught growing up is a lie. And I think I'm so emotional because I stood in my bathroom tonight in the dark because I still can't look at myself. And I did my hair. And I feel good about myself. And I mourn all of the years that I've lived not loving who I am. And I mourn all the years that I've placed so much obsession on what I look like and placing all of my value on what I look like. And for who? For white people.
Let's get one thing straight. I am not a call-out creator, and I don't want to be. I prefer to call in and come from a place of understanding as much as possible. However, we have an even greater surplus than normal of white people that have been on this app causing a lot of harm. And I have an issue with that. I also had a bad day, so I thought to myself, I will do some light research. But everyone remembers this live, right? From a few days ago? The one where Mercedes dropped multiple black women from her panel, but allowed the white bald man, Tom from MySpace wannabe, to interject and speak at length on racism. So we could all tell Tom was problematic, right? But I think it's important to spread awareness before these people get large and platformed, before anyone puts any kind of trust in them. Another thing we're all aware of is Mercedes leading the Gays Against Groomers as recently as July of this past year. So it's interesting to me that Mercedes would be associating with a guy that perpetuates revenge porn and a blatant misogynist who looks at some creepy shit. So I have a couple things for you to watch here. Trigger warning. May cause anger.
The reason this happens is because of feminism. The more that women are able to get like higher positions, jobs, and they've always wanted a man who can pay the bills, right? They've always wanted a guy who's able to, be the breadwinner, all of that crap. So the higher that they get paid, more and more, now they're making a lot more money, but they still want a breadwinner. They still want somebody who makes more money than them, but women on average are making more money now. So now it leaves a big chunk of guys down towards the bottom. And so now, not only are the good-looking ones and the ugly ones all getting the top percentage of guys, but now there's this massive chunk of dudes just left by themselves at the bottom.
There you have the incels. That's where it all went wrong.
Yikes. To make matters worse, poor Tom is not only at the bottom of the totem pole of potential breadwinners for both beautiful and ugly women, but additionally clearly thought that he would have better luck over on TikTok than on the YouTube channel he has. So with his shocking 767 followers, he still hasn't figured out to make his following list private. And Tom, this is concerning. Let's look at the people you followed when you first decided to get on TikTok. So this seemed like a lot of women that were followed by tomfoolery in succession. Okay. This one concerned me a little bit more because there's a child in almost every picture. Yeah. And then this one is like typical, but like, Tom, a little out of your league. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that's a nice booty. But I'm getting an objectifying pattern here. Then we have this one, this one, this one, this one. And last but not least, this page, which has 2 to 4 videos of this person, and almost every other video is a child. So y'all have made it abundantly clear that you're worried about transgender people. Meanwhile, you have white bald men that are following likely young girls and children in general, and using their TikTok platforms to talk about what they think is or isn't racist as a white person and spread incel ideology. And I just want to say that this is what happens when you don't deconstruct white supremacy. Groomers are a problem, Mercedes, but it's not who you think it is.
Coined by author Mary Frances Winters, the term captures something we all feel but rarely say out loud. It is the exertion of code switching, overperforming, underreacting, and still being seen as angry, lazy, or threatening. In school, black kids are over-policed and under-supported. In the workplace, black employees often walk on eggshells, afraid to be too honest, too real, too black. You are asked to lead diversity talks, to speak your truth, but only if it is polite, palatable, and does not make anyone uncomfortable. The truth, it is emotional labor disguised as inclusion. Every few weeks, another hashtag, another viral video of a black life taken senselessly. We watch our brothers and sisters die in real time and then log in for meetings like nothing happened. The world calls it a tragedy. We call it Tuesday. Even our trauma is consumed as content, and we are expected to grieve quietly because if we shout, we are angry. If we protest, we are radical. And if we burn out, well, no one notices. Let's talk about the lie of black resilience. Yes, we have survived the unimaginable. Yes, we have survived the unimaginable. But survival is not healing. Resilience is not rest. And we should not have to break ourselves to prove our strength. Black fatigue is what happens when you are expected to be superhuman just to earn basic dignity. Black people suffer from higher rates of hypertension, heart disease, anxiety, and depression, but we are less likely to seek help because therapy is still taboo, access is limited, and we are told to just pray it away. But faith alone cannot heal what society continues to wound. Your mental health matters, your rest matters, you matter. We have to unlearn the myth that we must always be strong. Rest is revolutionary. Joy is resistance. Community is medicine. Therapy is valid. Boundaries are protection. And white allies, if you really want to help, do not ask us to explain, educate yourselves, challenge your privilege, and show up consistently. Black fatigue is real, it is heavy, and most days it feels like the world is asleep while we are still screaming for air. But you deserve to rest without guilt, to feel without filters, and to exist without being exhausted by your own very presence. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comment box below. Until next time, cheers and have a good one.